Big Basket now presents RCB Podcast.
Hey there, this is Big Basket Now presents the RCB podcast where we go bold and beyond. And it's our endeavor to build India as a sporting nation, to talk to athletes who will teach us more about evolution, longevity, and transitioning. So let's begin. So let's go back in time 2 decades ago, if you would allow me, Ellyse. There's this young 17-year-old girl who's a typical 17-year-old girl, but not that typical as we're about to find out because she's got the braces, the ponytail, exuberance of youth, bundle of energy, which only teenagers are allowed to have. And here you haven't played any senior level for your state, but you're playing for your country in a T20 against arch rivals England, and you just bossed that game in true all-rounder fashion. And there was born the legend. How's that for an opening sequence in a movie?
It's definitely a bit Hollywood style. I think you put a little bit of extra mayonnaise on that. But I guess it feels a long time ago now. But some really fun memories of a special time.
But it's amazing because that's 2008, 17 years ago, if my math is correct. It was one of my strongest suites, but 2 decades ago virtually, and you're still bossing it. So somehow you've got the secret sauce, the secret to longevity, because we all were told before you were coming here, is she coming, is she not? There could be an injury, there was injury concerns. And somehow, you've got the orange cap on your head, you just continue to boss it.
I'm not sure it's bossing it, but I think I've been able to continue to learn, which has been, the most motivating factor, I think, of still playing. It's just that the opportunity that always presents itself to learn something new, to be challenged. And I think particularly in this environment, in women's cricket, in women's sport, every year it just gets a little bit bigger, a little bit better. There's new opportunities for so many players around the world. And so it's really lovely to be a part of that. And I think in that sense, to have played for as long as I have, I feel incredibly fortunate and grateful, but also I guess really motivated to still be able to do it.
10 minutes to go. Can they deliver? They've brought it home in 10 minutes. Remember the name. Big Basket. 10 minute ka naya naam.
We take you back to that game in 2008 where you had this incredible all-round performance. What do you think you learned from that game as a 17-year-old kid?
It's funny, I'm not sure you learn a lot in the early phases, because everything's it's so new and fresh that you're just kind of taking it for what it is. And you'll often see young players come in their first year it looks so easy for them, and I think that's because everything's so new. You've got no expectations. There's kind of nothing that you're drawing from the past or things that you're worried about or anxious about, and you're just taking it all in your stride. So I guess in that sense, it's a really lovely time to be a part of playing, because you just play with so much freedom. So now retrospectively looking back on that, I've probably learnt a lot from it, but I think at the time you're just having the time of your life, and all these new experiences and making new friends and teammates and going to all these new places. So very happy to be there.
Well, the trick to longevity is, especially in professional sport, that somehow you got to do away with the pressure, right? And you've got to do away with any criticism and negativity. So how do you continue to do it? Because it creeps in at some point. So when you don't have the very rose-tinted exuberance of youth anymore, and you've seen a few things, how do you continue that part away?
It's just there's an element of acceptance in it. So I think, it doesn't matter who you are, you always have different thoughts of insecurity or pressure or anxiousness, or if things aren't going exactly according to plan, get stressed out and all those things. I think the biggest part of that is just accepting that that's how you're feeling and not letting it overwhelm you, because there's always a solution. And those kind of moments where it feels really critical or overwhelming, they always pass at some point or another. Some last longer than others, but as I said, I think if you can accept that that's how you're feeling and that there's always a way out of it, and when you do get out of it, you learn from it and you're going to be a better person or a better performer. They're kind of moments that you can embrace a little bit more.
I am sure you know that there's like literally a dictionary of adjectives that people have used to describe you in international cricket just because of the icon that you are. But the one thing that I've heard the most walking into this podcast, Ellyse Perry, awesome rock star. You know how often she spends time in the gym? She's in the gym for 4 hours. Every single person has pointed out the fact that the gym is obviously, strength, fitness, but maybe is it like your safe space? Is it like a place for you to kind of tune off from everything, unwind, and are you really there for 4 or 5 hours a
I think that's a slight exaggeration, but
day? Okay, 3. Sorry.
some of the girls have started to refer to the gym as my boyfriend. So I think having the chance to be like in my own space and moving, like a part of that is like, I think when I'm moving, it will just feel like I'm using my body, everything is a bit clearer in my mind as well. It's not just the gym, like I love to just go for a walk or a swim or for a ride. Like, it doesn't really matter. I just have always found that like movement has kind of helped with clarity from a thinking perspective. So I really value that. I think if I get the chance to do that every day, then, I'm a better person in other facets of my life.
But is that just an Australian thing? Because growing up, that seems to be the norm, fitness, sport, outdoor lifestyle. It's not something that we're used to growing up back here in India, but is it that?
Oh, I'm sure there's an element of cultural kind of norms in Australia that have definitely influenced me. Like, I mean, a lot of my family time as a kid, we spent outdoors, whether it was in the backyard at home or down at a local park, or mum and dad taking us to the beach on the weekend. Learning how to catch and throw and kick and all those things has certainly been a part of my psyche since I was really young. And yeah, I suppose when you've got a nice day and not much to do, there's nothing more appealing than being outside and just like, wandering around, in my opinion anyway. So it might have a bit to do with being Australian. I think, as well, as I said, I've found over the years it's something that really helps me be a better person more generally.
I mean, obviously, when you talk about someone who's always in the gym, you talk about words like focus and discipline, which have to be attached to the longevity of your career. But what exactly is discipline to you? Is it discipline mentally, physically? Like, how would you explain discipline to this generation of cricketers?
In my head anyway, discipline's quite a negative word, and I don't really...
You're telling an army kid this?
I'm really sorry.
Discipline and wants to discipline her own kid? Yeah, fair enough, okay.
No, I'm not, like, it's not a bad word at all.
Exactly.
But I think, like, for me, I absolutely love what I do, and it's not a chore. It's not something that requires a huge amount of, like, pep talking to myself to get up and go and do it. And maybe that's because over the years I've learnt like just how much better it always makes me feel. Whether that's going to training and working on something, or going to the gym or for a run. Like, I don't think there's ever been a time where afterwards I've regretted doing it. Like, even if, before going you feel a bit like, oh, I just can't be bothered today, or I'm a bit tired, or I'm a bit rushed or whatever. Every time I've gone and done it, like, I've never regretted it. So I think, like, with that in mind, it's really just about rearranging your priorities a little bit, like, and understanding like what actually makes you feel great. And when I think that's kind of ordered in your head, it doesn't really feel like discipline. It just feels like a part of you.
How much of it then just transfers into a routine or a habit of winning, a habit of being an elite athlete? How much of it just becomes that?
I suppose, like, over a period of time, there is certain things that just become ingrained. But also, I guess the trap with that is you just don't want to do the same thing over and over for the sake of it. So
when do you know how to evolve then?
It's a really good question. It's probably something that has been one of the biggest learning curves for me over my career. Because I think, especially when I was younger and you're so keen to do well and you get so nervous in matches and just like constantly want things to go well, you get really attached to like a routine or a superstition, or just get a little bit wound up because, like, you probably feel like there's not so much control over your performance, but you can control everything else around it, and that for some reason gives you a sense of like control or calm. Whereas I think as I've got older, like, kind of understanding that, like, if you actually just listen to yourself, you've got so many thousands of hours of experience, like, implicitly and explicitly, that have gone into like everything that you've done, and if you just like sit back a little bit and let yourself feel what your body's telling you or what your mind's telling you around preparing or training or needing to evolve or change, I think the answers become a lot more obvious, or the path or the new route to explore is kind of a lot more open to you. Whereas I think when you're really attached to routines, which can be helpful for a period of time, it sort of stops you seeing what else is out there or what else is possible.
You just described evolution for
Yeah.
an elite athlete.
Yeah, I guess so.
Beautifully done. But I mean, that's part of the understanding, because we look at you often and think of moments in your career, like we just spoke about your T20I debut, then there's moments in the World Cup 2010, 2013, Ashes, where you just had the temperament for big match situations. In the WPL, definitely for RCB, the moment where you just have that sort of temperament. It's something that we aspire, and all athletes aspire to be the go-to players or the big match players. How much of that is ingrained on you? How much of that is something that you've made yourself?
I don't really know, because I guess like you sort of listed the ones that went my way or went the team's way. There's lots of moments too in big pressure situations that like would have fronted up for and not panned out how you wanted them to. And I think that's probably like,
Can you give me an example of a moment that you feel really didn't go your way?
Lost a bunch of finals, whether it's been in the WPL, World Cup finals, World Cup semi-finals. So there's lots of moments, but they always serve as like amazing learning opportunities. Not just personally, but like I think as a group, whatever team you're a part of. But if you don't put yourself in that situation to succeed or fail at any point in time, like you're never going to learn, and you're never going to know what you're capable of. So I think like I'd much rather be there in that situation and give it my absolutely everything, or whether it goes my way or not, that's not the point. I think if I shied away from that, or if the team shied away from that, that's when you'd really regret it, or you'd rue that, and you don't grow. There's no opportunity or capacity to actually grow as a person or grow in your mind and like be ready for the next chance.
So how do you take failure? Do you call it failure? Do you call it setbacks? Like how are you when things don't go your way?
I just think it's really trivial in sport. And that's not to diminish the importance of competing and playing, but like you can't fail in sport. It's a game. Like we're not playing for life and death. It's an absolute joy to be out there on a field doing something that you love. So whether you win or lose is kind of besides the point, I think, personally. Obviously, you're doing everything you can to be successful, but like if you're not, there's going to be another game. Like it doesn't even really matter like how important that game is. Even if it's a World Cup final, once that game's played, like there's going to be another game. So yeah, it sucks in the moment. You always feel a bit down, disappointed, but if you can learn from it, like ultimately it's a win anyway.
A lot of cricketers, including, I think, had a chance once to speak to Alistair Cook, who said, you're going to have way more bad days and you're going to have good ones. Your good ones are the ones that get you through. However, in this day and age, because you've seen generations shift in cricket with social media, with fans, do they let you forget the setbacks? Because it's everywhere, it's all around you. So has your coping mechanism changed?
Yeah, mate, that's a really good question. I think the way that we can consume our own performances and our own careers these days is really different. And a large part of that is because of social media. Like even just comparing, I guess, a dressing room 10, 15 years ago at the end of a game, people would be sitting around sort of chatting or not chatting if it had gone really badly, or just kind of there in the moment. I think now at the end of a game, a lot of the time, like our phones are on the table to be collected, and the first thing you do is turn it on. Now if you've got like social media or alerts set up, you get instant feedback from people you don't know, telling you exactly what they thought of your performance. And I think like deep down you're going to know how you went that day, how your teammates went, and there's a circle in that change room that is full of trust and respect, and everyone's got each other's backs. But I think down the other end of your phone, it's a really different set of circumstances. So yeah, I think that is a really big challenge. And on the other side of things, when you do really well, and people are applauding you, it's really easy to get caught in your own hype as well and watch all your highlights and read all the comments and feel, so high. Fortunately, I sort of feel like slightly of the older generation where it hasn't impacted me too much. And I've probably been really actively sort of like not wanting to use social media for that. Yeah, so I guess there's just like everyone will be different, but just trying to find a healthy level of engagement with that is really different to what it was, 15 years ago.
But for so long, that's what you've been here for a very long time. For so long, you've been the front runner of not just, I think, women's cricket, but women's sport in general. You've been an iconic player because of achievements that you've had at a young stage. You're playing in World Cups, multiple World Cups for different sports. There are very few people on the planet who can say something like that. Because there is hype, and well-deserved, if I must say. There is well-deserved. If I had to put you on a pedestal, I definitely do put you on a pedestal. But there are times where when you come back as an athlete, like you say, to your own grounding, does that grounding come from yourself? Is there a system around you? How much of a role do your family and friends play, moments like that when you do feel like, okay, I am on top of the world and, I'm awesome at this, which you should say?
I think, certainly I am so incredibly indebted to my family and friends. I just had the most amazing upbringing and, every single opportunity that my parents gave me to just try things that I loved, like lots of different sports, but also music and drama and just about anything that my brother and I sort of wanted to try. They were so encouraging of, but never pushy or never expectant that we were going to, be prodigies at it or be, turn it into a career. I think it was just about like experiencing as much as you can. Yeah, I know equally with my friends, like, whenever we get together, I'm still really close with my school friends, and I'm just their friend from school, and that's all that really matters. So, they've played such a huge kind of role in my life, and I'm so grateful to that. And I think knowing that regardless of what I do on a cricket pitch or in other aspects of my life, like, it doesn't matter to them one bit. And I don't mean this in a diminishing way, but it doesn't matter to me either. At the end of the day, like, when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the night, like, I probably judge myself on if I've been a good person that day or not, or if I lost my patience with someone, or if I didn't, I wasn't gracious enough to someone, or maybe didn't give them the time that they deserved. I think they're the things that really, like, you feel at night, as opposed to whether you hit some runs or took some wickets.
10 minutes to go. Can they deliver? They've brought it home in 10 minutes. Remember the name. Big Basket. 10 minute का नया नाम.
But I'm sure at some stage you've got to have felt pretty imperious in it. Enjoy the moment of being top of the world. I mean, you must have. What was like that moment where you really felt, because you worked hard for this? I am on top of the world. I'm on top of my craft here. I am the best in the world.
Sure. Like, when things go to plan, ironically, they're the times that you don't feel anything, because I think it just all happens so intuitively. And you're in the flow, so to speak. So you actually don't really have too much like cognition of what's happening. But yeah, that feeling, I guess, at the end can be really intoxicating. But I also think, like, it's so fleeting, and and it's just not something that you can recreate, at the drop of a hat. So whilst it's really lovely when it happens, and it's nice to hold on to for a bit and to enjoy and celebrate, like, ultimately it's going to disappear. And I think to not have a level of reliance on that, and to know that there's a centre ground somewhere that at the end of the day, like, you can come back to, I think I really appreciate that.
So it was really endearing to hear about your support structure, which is great, and that is also a cultural thing. Now, having played alongside a lot of Indian players and coming to India quite often, do you feel like the generation for women's cricket has shifted here? Do you feel like the Indian girls are getting that sort of support that you got to pursue?
Oh, I hope so. It's been amazing, even just over the 3 years of the WPL so far, to see just how much domestic talent is coming through, and like, meeting a lot of those girls, whether they're playing for RCB or some of the other franchises, and just seeing how important and big this opportunity is for them. the coaches and the support staff with our new players are brilliant and really want them to do well. And I think, you know, it's important too, like, because this is only 5 weeks. I think it's over in a flash. Like, where you go to from there is so key, and how you keep building on things. So, yeah, I kind of have seen as this tournament's progressed, how much more opportunity there is for young girls playing and coming through, and how good they are. It's a bit scary. Like, I'm actually a bit worried every year I come back and start facing new bowlers in the nets, or having to bowl to new batters, and they're just like super talented, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be so redundant soon. But I mean, that's great too.
Well, I mean, you're clearly not. And I think it's nice to see you meld so nicely with different generations, because there are a couple of girls in your team that would, like yourself, teenagers, like Richa, for example, when she played for her country. So she's going through an interesting journey that you've already gone through, which is international sport as a youngster, as a teenager. And then, you know, we all grow up. We go through the normal things that we go through adolescence, and then you become a young person, then you're a young woman. So that phase of life and development while playing international sport, were you able to have some normal moments? Were there some challenges in that arena?
Oh, I think by and large, like, I've been really fortunate. I've had this amazing experience across like a large proportion of my life now, but it's never felt like it's owned me or become my entire identity. But yeah, I spend a lot of time like away playing cricket and just being a cricketer, I suppose, but I don't think it's who I am. There's lots of other things that really interest me, and even just like in a cricket environment, connecting with people on things that are so far away from the cricket field has always kind of just been something that's really interested me. So yeah, I think that's kind of been important. And even like when we're away, like just finding things in wherever you are that have nothing to do with cricket, that you can learn about the world.
What do you enjoy? The travel, the food? What do you enjoy?
Yeah, I definitely love food and coffee, and just like exploring, like walking around. But even just kind of some of the uniqueness of like whatever culture you're in. I'm not going to say this right, but even just learning about the kumbh that's been happening.
Of course,
you're
saying right.
Something that's like I'd never even heard of from back home, but like just an amazing event that happens once every 144 years, and kind of revolves around like I guess religion and culture and all those kinds of things, and draws so many people in. That's been fascinating. Like just stuff like that, I think makes me really grateful. Because it just, it adds to the experience.
It's like an education. You made it sound like
that, actually. Oh, wow.
Playing international cricket.
Yeah, I guess if you mix in some YouTube videos in your hotel room at night, like, you can learn a few things.
Yeah. That's quite beautifully said. Obviously, we're very aware of how women in general are portrayed, especially women athletes. And if you fit a certain bill, then you're marketable. Did you ever have that experience? Did you ever felt like you were being stereotyped despite your achievements? Like, is it something that you saw around you with your colleagues?
I think personally, no. But if I could speak more broadly on that, I think not just marketing or the commercialization of women's sport, but broader than that, I think the way that the sport sport is now covered has really changed. So when I first started, hardly any of our matches were televised, like maybe one or two to a year, which were precursors to men's matches. The kind of reporting always followed the same narrative of, do you wish that you were paid more to play? Do you wish you had more attention? So it sort of perpetuated the same storyline about women's sport. And if you fast forward 15, 20 years to where we are now, and you got full-time analysts that are reporting on the sport. Every match is covered. We've got 30,000 people at the stadium every night.
Central contracts.
Yeah, central contracts. Like, women have the opportunity to work in sport full-time, professionally, whether that's as a player, as a coach, administrator, executive. I think that, by and large, is really representative of where the sport probably started and where it's got to. And to me, that's just been truly incredible. And certainly amongst that, we are celebrating women for their achievements and their prowess on the field far more than we are any kind of, stereotype physical attributes. And I think that's been an amazing achievement for everyone involved to just get it to that place. And then, I think it's been so backed up by the way that the general population and society are now celebrating women's sport as well.
I think you're such an incredible athlete. I still go on social media and find you in the list of hottest cricketers. But to be fair, the list
I haven't seen my wrinkles.
You don't have any wrinkles. No, I mean, to be fair, at least they're being fair. It is all genders of cricketers that are in that list. But, it still kind of happens. It's like, what's your reaction to that?
Probably in the earlier parts of my career, what we used to promote the sport was very different. And what attributes of players we used to promote the sport is very different to what we do now. And part of that is that it's much easier to tell a story now because, as I said, matches are on television. You see people's performances. So many of the players are inspiring a whole new generation of young girls to play cricket. But they're also inspiring a generation that's watched sport and been rusted on male supporters for a long period of time and now are really open to women's sport. So I think we've been able to broaden the horizon, and that's not to diminish that. Certainly, whilst I didn't really feel it, I think in the earlier parts of my career, or even just 20 years ago in women's sport, a lot of the conversation was just around someone's physical attributes and whether they were good looking or not. I don't think that is the case anymore. I think it's very much more about how inspiring someone is or what story is being told about this team or this athlete and their achievements.
Is it something that you see now in the younger generation where they don't necessarily shy away from, because, social media comes with all sort of comments and everyone has an opinion on everyone, how you're dressed, how you look, whatever, right? Is it something that, do you see it still affecting a younger generation, or they're just,
I mean, I think that's the scary thing about it, is that, your phone's always in your pocket or it's next to your bed at night. It's in your hotel room when you're by yourself. And I don't know, what people read and what they don't read and how it affects them a lot of the time, unless they tell you or unless you see something that's directly aimed at someone else. I do actually really worry about that because it's sort of hard to know because it's so out of sight sometimes for everyone else. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously pros and cons with social media as well, because it's also given an opportunity for athletes to promote, their own brand, so to speak, for teams to connect directly with their supporters, same as individual athletes, to be able to have more opportunities to work commercially with sponsors because there's a direct avenue where you can promote that. So I guess, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? But
speaking of promotion, I think it's pretty intriguing that out of all the things that you really got involved with ensuring that there was a line of gear developed specifically for women cricketers, what were some of the challenges that is it true about this box story that you didn't know it's supposed to be different and using a male box?
I mean, I probably learnt that really early on because I grew up playing boys cricket, and so I had a female box from pretty early on. And actually, to be fair, I don't know too many girls that wear one, but I mean, I think one of the biggest things for me, which really stood out, was that a lot of cricket brands are very traditionally sort of, I guess, male brands, and even the sizing truly reflects that. Working up from sort of smallest to largest is boys, youth, small men's, tall men's, for girls starting out in the sport. And then you sort of try and get some equipment and none of it is sort of named or sized to fit you. It's a really interesting
It's such a basic thing to feel included in.
It's really, really easy to change. And even just at the elite end of the spectrum, if you've got, I don't know, Nat Sivabrunt, who's the world's best cricketer, going out onto the field wearing men's pads that have probably got extra padding in them because they're designed to absorb a ball coming down at 145 kilometres per hour, but they actually make it a lot bulkier for her to run between the wickets. I just think some of that stuff we still probably haven't put enough thought or nuance into what we're doing to support our elite players at the very top end, and what we're also doing at a junior, like entry level, to ensure that girls feel really included in the sport. We've come a long way, but I think something like gear actually plays like a lot more of a role than we probably think, especially as a kid. Like I still remember the first bat that I got, the first gloves that I was wearing and all those kinds of things. So it does make a big impact on you.
10 minutes to go. Can they deliver? They've brought it home in 10 minutes. Remember the name. Big Basket. 10 minute का नया नाम.
Tell me the first time in a stadium as a kid, or when you first became aware of women athletes. I know you watched a lot of swimming, right? Is that something you mentioned? Yeah, because your mom pushed you into it.
Yeah, mum and dad both. Well, my dad's dad was a swimming coach, and my mum and dad actually both met at the pool. So,
that's a neat cute right there. That's pretty cool.
So swimming's and it's very much an Australian sport. So it was always a big part of my childhood. More so watching it than swimming. I'm a terrible swimmer, but I used to love watching our swimmers compete. And one of my favourite swimmers ever was Susie O'Neill, who swam butterfly and freestyle, and was just incredible. So
many great women cricketers that have come from Australia. When were you aware of this legacy that Australian women cricketers had? Because you were still, you were playing football and cricket, and at one point it became like a contract. So when were you became aware that, okay, these are the people I want to try and emulate or break their records or, be as great as them?
Probably not as soon as I wish I had have known, to be fair. It was probably like around, my early teens that I realised there was an Australian women's cricket team. Before that, I sort of grew up playing club cricket with the boys, and there was one or two other girls in the competition. Always watched the Australian men's team play. Used to go to the Sydney Test in New Year's and watch them on TV, and I knew a lot of the male players. But it probably, as I said, wasn't until my early teens that I actually realised we had a female team. And one of my earliest memories actually was that they played India in a World Cup final. In 2005, maybe.
Okay.
South Africa. So I was would have been 14 or 15 then.
Okay, that's quite a bit. And then what about watching matches at Sydney with the players that you grew to admire? Or
really early on, I remember Steve Waugh really well, Glenn McGrath, Andy Bickle actually, and then my absolute favourite player was Michael Hussey. So I used to watch
Mr. Cricket.
I used to watch him all the time.
So you just described a couple of players who traumatized Indian fans growing up quite a bit because of being typically ruthless Australian players. That's our generation that's what we expected out of Australian players. There was this ruthlessness, and then I meet you, and you've absolutely accomplished everything. I don't see an iota of ruthlessness. When does it come out?
I don't know if I would describe myself as ruthless, but I just think in sport, why we love it so much is because we actually don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of the time, amazing things happen on a sporting field that kind of don't follow the script that we think that it will, or people just hang in there long enough and are determined enough to capture a moment that goes their way and completely right the ship and change the trajectory of a game. For us as Australians anyway, from a cultural perspective, that's kind of always been ingrained in the way that we play, that if you're on the field, no matter what the game situation is, that you've got to see it out right to the end, and within that just be really believing of the fact that you could still win even if it's not going your way, and if you are winning, to make sure that you win by not relaxing, I suppose. But I don't know if that's ruthless.
Ruthless again. I don't mean it as a negative. It's very reminiscent of the team talk you had ahead of the Mumbai game. It's not over till that last ball. So all the RCB fans know that, but it's actually a quality to admire, because it's almost like you're not giving up. till it's over, and then you can switch off and be.
Again, that's probably sound like a broken record, but that doesn't mean it's going to go your way.
Fair.
And I think you've just got to accept that and still give it your best anyway. I think, you can even really feel like you're truly part of a losing cause. And you've still got a choice, whether you're going to accept that and just let the game go, or whether you're actually just going to do everything in your power to shift that energy towards being part of a winning cause. Whether you get there or not is not the point. I think it's just that habit of doing that over and over again. It's amazing how many times after a while that ends up falling your way from positions where seemingly it probably shouldn't. And it's just that level of commitment, I suppose, to it.
Like you said, it doesn't go your way. I mean, you've had your own personal battles, being out of the team, conversations around your strike rates. Evolution is the name of the game. So changing the way that, let's say, you bat in T20s, what were your methods about making those changes? Was there anything particular? Was it mental? Was it... Obviously, some part of it has to be the skill aspect.
Yeah. I suppose it's letting go of whatever identity that you've cultivated in your mind about what kind of player you are, and just trying to discover what else is out there. And sometimes that's easier, when you've got a pretty good push to do so, because otherwise you're going to be irrelevant. But I think one of the biggest lessons for me is trying to do that before you need to, which is hard because it's really you want to hold on to something, you want to feel safe with who you are as a player and what you're capable of, and it's scary when you're trying to push to a new place, but it's so much more rewarding. And so I'm really grateful for that experience, and I guess in doing that, it's it also then is spending lots of hours practicing it. So it's one thing to think about it and accept it and be willing to go somewhere else, but then finding the method to it is probably the joy in it, because there's sort of a certain level of creativity that you've got to express to do that, and then just some grafting and man hours to find a solution. So that's probably one of my favorite parts about the sport and playing, and working with a coach or coaches that you can discover that with is so rewarding.
As you mature on in a game, there's maybe sometimes aspects we don't see you bowling as often. Is that by choice? Is that timidity? Because it's tough for all-rounders. It really is, to keep, that intensity. So is that something that you've consciously chosen? Has it just come about, or is there some secret that you're keeping from us that we don't know about yet?
No, it's just another really cool challenge for me. I think there's probably facets of my bowling that aren't as effective as what they were when I first started out, and that's kind of how I started playing, was as a bowler. Trying to constantly work on that and be effective in different parts of the game, particularly in T20 cricket, has been really fun. So trying to develop some different slower balls or variations to what I do. It's kind of the same thing.
So you are cooking something.
Well, I feel like I've been cooking something for about 10 years, but and sometimes I have real great breakthroughs with that, and then other times there's so many great players, and a lot of all-rounders in teams at the moment. So if you're not effective, you won't bowl. I'm really enjoying that challenge. It's probably a different one, as you mentioned, physically speaking, it's different to batting, and so trying to find a way to do that, in amongst playing all the time is a different challenge. But I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like I've learnt heaps. And then it's probably just translating that at different points when I get an opportunity in a match.
So 2008, you were in the crowds at the Chinnaswamy watching the first ever IPL game, if I'm not wrong. Fast forward now, 17 years later, the entire Chinnaswamy is screaming your name. What a full circle moment, if anything, from the player and person you were then to where you reached.
Kind of weird. I had not really connected it that way. That was my first ever trip to India, actually. And it was such a cool trip. We stayed in the stadium at Chinnaswamy, played against, few different teams, and then I'm pretty sure we travelled to Mysore at one point and played the Indian women's team. I was in an under-18 New South Wales team. We played them in a practice match, and that was just like crazy. Mitali Raj was batting with like a floppy. Jalan Goswami was bowling. Like it was such a great trip. And then, we went to the first RPL match where Brendan McCullum, I think, scored 150 for KKR. So, I just remember thinking that was just the most insane thing ever. So, now for us to be on the same field with packed stadium and, like, honestly, we can't communicate out there because it's so loud. And I think all of us here at RCB just feel so fortunate that we're playing for this team, because the support is just crazy and it makes every game like really special, and just want to like hold on to them and I guess never forget them, because I'm sure down the track when this isn't an option for me anymore and I'm watching and the girls are getting that same support, it'd be really nice to tap into that and remember the feeling.
But if you were 17 years old and starting now in the WPL with that sort of exposure environment, because there are a lot of, there's some girls from younger 19 who
Well, I mean, it's a different starting point.
Or it's a different setup, or?
It's definitely a different starting point. I mean, and we're all just like, it's just timing, right? And I'm like, so I would not change a thing in terms of the experiences that I've had and the perspective that that's given me from, I guess, when I started, like, and having a handful of friends and family in a crowd to where we are now. And then, how exciting it is for young girls coming in. We had a 15-year-old at Sydney Sixers make her debut, Kiva Bray, in the WBBL last year. And, like, she's a mate. Like, she's so talented. She had a great first game. The difference between like her experience with first game and then, someone else who might have started, 10 years ago, it's just chalk and cheese. And I think that's like really, really cool to see. Comes with its own set of complexities and challenges in terms of, I guess, like, there's probably much more expectation on young girls these days on themselves, but also externally, because everyone sees
Everyone's
it.
watching.
Everyone's watching. So there's probably no chance to find your feet. You've sort of just thrown straight into it. But I guess also at the same time, gosh, what a great thing to be thrown into, and you probably learn really quickly how to handle pressure and the excitement of that.
Do you think 15, 16-year-olds are mentally stronger today, or they were mentally stronger when you made your debut?
I don't know, to be fair. I mean, they're different generations, like growing up in different circumstances and environments, which probably dictate that. I think in some facets they're far more mentally stronger and probably far more mentally aware of themselves than what I was growing up. But in saying that, I think, like, I didn't have, as we're speaking about, like, I didn't have the impact of social media in my early teens, which I'm so grateful for, because I didn't spend, like, large proportions of my time, like, comparing myself to others or feeling insignificant because, I don't have a curated, like...
Was there anyone to compare yourself to, considering you got successful so early, or you showed signs of brilliance so early?
Absolutely.
It's a genuine question. I'm not saying it as...
Oh, absolutely, because I was still a teenage girl. Like, I was at an all-girls school. Like, sport's one thing. It's one facet of life and what I do. But, like, it's just human nature to compare yourself. And I think when you're younger too, like, it's really easy to fall into the trap of, like, feeling, I guess, like, insignificant in comparison because you don't have the same hair as that person, or they're smarter than you, or all those kinds of things. Like it doesn't matter what it is, still has capacity to impact you until you kind of learn to just be really comfortable with yourself. So definitely remember that as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, like, you still are in a way doing that where you're pushing yourself. So next 10 years, what does it look like for you? What's on your radar?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to still be in a position where I'm doing things that I really find invigorating and challenging and motivating. What that is, I don't really know. It's funny where life takes you, like, despite the best laid plans. So, yeah, I'm kind of open to whatever that is. But yeah, hopefully for the next little bit anyway, I'm still playing cricket.
And in terms of just the growth of women's sport in general, do you feel that now women's sport has changed in a way that, because you're always striving for a balance, sometimes for family, motherhood, there's so many aspects being a woman's athlete. Do you feel that there's a structure in place now?
Yeah, there's a new complexity to that for sure. And I think certainly a lot more structure and support around providing female athletes like with an opportunity and a real holistic kind of outlook on their lives and livelihoods. Like, I think, and I'm not quite as sure what the circumstances here in India are, but I know certainly with Australia and Cricket Australia, like we've got a full sort of maternity and pregnancy policy that wholly supports any of our players being pregnant and having children while still playing. And so I think that's wonderful if that's the path you want to take, and there's been some players who have done that, and they've been really inspiring to a whole group of players, and also just women in general, that we don't have to put our lives on hold to have kids. It should be a part of the female experience, but not in the way that just consumes you, I suppose.
And final question, there was this video as we were actually building up to the Border Gavaskar Trophy doing the rounds. Male and female Australian cricketers being asked which Australian cricketer has the most Riz. Ellyse Perry.
Riz?
See that? Charm, charisma. No, it's not our generation term, but the kids will understand it.
Right.
Across the board.
Wow.
Most charisma, the person that you're most drawn to.
No, I'm the kind of person that's like in their hotel room at 9 o'clock reading a book and has lit a candle and is fast asleep by about 9:45. So no, I don't think I'm got much charisma at all. But
I think you sell yourself short there. But it was fun to see that. I mean, obviously, it just means how admired you are, and you're not restricted being the person to just being a woman cricketer or Australian cricketer. It's something that you represent a sport overall. And I think that's the way to end it, really. So that's why thank you so much for talking to us, because we're really looking forward to what the next 10 years do possess for you. And obviously, there's a lot of love here in RCB for yourself.
Well, thank you. It's a really lovely sentiment, and I've had the most amazing experience here for the last 3 years with RCB and our team, but just the tournament as well. It's amazing what it's doing for cricket in India and for our female cricketers. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for talking to us. Ellyse, thanks so much for joining us. So Big Basket now, delivering in just 10 minutes, our digital partners. A special hamper for you. So when it is 9 p.m., you've got the candlelight and the good book. You can also enjoy a few things in this hamper to set them
Well, I'm fond of a bit of chocolate, so I hope there's some chocolate in there.
There is.
Thank you very much.
There's lots of nice stuff.
Very kind of you, thank you.
And some coffee. You like your coffee?
I love coffee, yeah. I'm going to have a field day. I won't leave my room.
Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, we'll get it to your room and make sure none of your teammates get
don't tell anyone.
Big Basket now presents RCB Podcast.